May I have your appearances, please?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Peter Kowinski appearing on behalf of the people. 84448.
Hey, good afternoon, Judge. Neighborhood Defender Service by Andrew Sullivan, PA 4261, here on behalf of Mr. Henkel, who's present here before. Mr. Henkel, can you state your name for the judge?
J.R. Survival Henkel.
Thank you. Today is the day and time set for the preliminary examination in this matter. There's count one, assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder. Count two, assault with dangerous weapon. Count three, assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder. Count four, assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder. Are the people ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we are, as a matter of fact.
Defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Judge.
Any preliminary matters, sir?
No preliminary matters at this moment.
Any preliminary matters, Mr. Sullivan?
Not at this time, Judge, no.
This court traditionally streams the proceedings. Any objection to these proceedings being streamed, sir?
Okay.
Do you have any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Sullivan?
No objection.
Thank you. Your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the people call their first witness to the stand, Christopher Wachakowski.
Sir, I'm going to have you come up to this podium right here. State your first and last name and then spell them both for the record.
Christopher Clark Wojciechowski, CHRISTOPHER, WOJCIECHOWSKI.
Raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you much. Come up here, please. Have a seat in the black chair that's closest to me. My secretary will be taking down your testimony. If she can't hear you, I'll ask you to raise your voice or pull the microphone to you, okay? Thank you. Your witness, sir.
Wachakowski, how are you today?
Good.
Mr. Wachakowski, first, can you tell us, were you at 10133 Romaine Avenue in Romulus, Michigan?
Yes.
Is that located in Romulus, Michigan in Wayne County?
Yes.
Okay. And were you there on December 21st, 2022?
Yes.
Can you tell us what brought you to that location?
JR's got a car that he wanted in the garage. I just got off work, come over there so we can clean out the garage so he can get his car in there.
And when you got to the location, what happened next?
They were drinking and I got a motorcycle. I took off on a motorcycle. We cleaned out the garage. I come back. I asked Alan Shepard, I says, man, is he drunk already or what's going on? So we were in the house. My wife come over there. They were cutting his hair. And he kept drinking his whiskey bottle. I kept on taking it away from him. Pulled out a knife on me. I told him he needs to put it away. We were scuffling around. I was trying to take stuff under the table. He ran upstairs, grabbed a baton, started beating us.
Okay. Where did he, with that baton, did he hit you anywhere?
Yes,
Where did he hit you?
hit me on the shoulder blade, on top of the hand, side of the head, in the face, busted the blood vessels in my eye, 4 stitches, 8 staples on the top of my head, on the side of the head, my finger, busted my ring, broke my arm.
Overall, can you tell us how many times would you say you were struck with a baton?
7 or 8.
7 or 8. Okay. Did you require any medical treatment?
Yes,
Were the paramedics called to the scene?
yes.
Who called the paramedics?
Alan Shepard's neighbors.
How long were you in the hospital for?
All night,
And you were out, then you were released the next morning, correct?
8:30 in the morning, yes.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, the people move to admit into evidence the people's proposed exhibit 1.
Thank you. It'll be received.
Yes.
Mr. Wojciechowski, what did I just hand you?
Where I was struck in the head and the blood was running down back of my neck and side of my face, and ears, and
So that is a picture of the injuries that you sustained, correct?
yes, from the top of my head.
Who took that photograph?
The police,
Is that a fair and accurate representation of how the condition, how you appeared after you were struck?
yes,
Thank you. How long? How long did you have the injuries afterwards?
I still got them. I just got the staples took out, I think, 2 days ago. Still got scabs on the side of my head, and I still got a broken arm. I gotta go to a bone specialist.
Okay. Were there any other injuries you sustained besides that?
Just the one under my eye that's still swelled up, but a little bit of blurriness.
Then I think there's no further questions at this point. Oh, there is one more question I forgot. Mr. Wojciechowski, I have just one more question. The person that did this to you, do you see him anywhere in the courtroom today?
Yes,
Could you please point him out and identify, tell us what he's wearing?
sitting right there with the black jacket on.
Let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant, J.R. Hinkle.
Thank you, sir.
No further questions.
Mr. Sullivan,
Thank you, Judge.
we're missing the bind over sheet. When we take a break.
Mr. Wojciechowski, you said that you went to this address to clean up a garage.
Yes,
What time did you go to the house?
it's probably 3:30-ish.
Okay, and your testimony today is that you went to the house at 3:30 for the sole purpose of cleaning up the garage?
So we can put a car in the garage, move my bike.
Okay, you and your buddy, and that would be Mr. Shepherd?
Yes,
Did you have any other purpose for being at Mr. Shepherd's home?
no, I wouldn't have been there. I just got off work.
Okay, so your only reason for going to the house was to put a car in a garage?
Yes,
And you began that at approximately 3:30?
yes,
You testified that there was some drinking that was happening at the house. Was the drinking already happening when you got there, or did it happen later on?
they were drinking before I was drinking. Started drinking later on.
Okay, so you were also drinking at the house?
Yes.
On this day? And you brought some alcohol with you, correct?
Yes,
You brought moonshine that you made?
no,
What was it that you brought?
24 pack of Budweiser, Bud Light,
Okay, how many of those Budweisers did you consume?
probably 6.
Okay. Was there anything else that people were drinking at the house?
They went to the store and it was some kind of a chocolate bomb, they call it. I think it's vodka. It looks like chocolate milk. And they had beers, and other than that, I don't know.
Did you have any of that chocolate drink?
Yes, I had a couple drinks.
Okay, so you had 6 beers and some vodka over the course of the day.
Yes,
And the conflict that you're testifying about happened, what would it have been, 11 or 11:30?
somewhere in that area, yes.
Okay, so how long after you finished cleaning the garage did this happen?
Well, we just had to move a few things, so we stood out there for a minute or two, so probably a good hour and a half.
So you finished cleaning the garage, you continued to drink for an hour, and then there was this conflict between you and Mr. Hankel.
Well, I left on the bike.
After
know how-
drinking?
No, before I was drinking. This is when, as soon as I got there, I left on the bike. I didn't have no alcohol, no nothing.
Okay, so you left on the bike and then you came back. What time did you come back?
Well, by the time cleaning the garage, and I would probably say it's been about an hour, hour and a half.
So
And
you're
they-
coming
and they were-
back,
And they were already drinking,
and now you're coming back at 5 o'clock.
somewhere in that area.
Could it have been 6 o'clock?
It's possible,
And then you consumed the 6 beers and vodka, correct?
probably, yes.
Well, probably, I mean, did you drink before you left?
No,
So all of
I
the,
was working all day.
okay,
My neighbor dropped me off.
all the drinking happened after you returned on your bike.
Yes.
And at that point, you'd already cleaned the garage, so what was your purpose for coming back to the house?
I had to move my bike over so he can get his car in there. So I moved my bike over and they were already in the house. So I just went in the house.
You testified earlier today that your purpose for going to the house was to clean the garage, correct?
Moved my bike and everything so he can get his car in there.
So after you left on your bike, he would have been able to get his car in the garage, correct?
Yes,
So then you came back, correct?
yes.
For what purpose?
Put my bike back in the garage, but over up against the wall.
Okay. And the way that you testified today, it's as though Mr. Henkel attacked you unprovoked. That's your testimony?
Yes,
You said he pulled a knife on you first?
yes.
Was that knife recovered by the police?
I don't know.
Can you describe the knife?
Oh, he always has it with him and I really can't describe it, but he always has it with him and it's on his side and he pulled it out. And I told him, best thing for you to do is put that away
Okay. What did you mean by that?
because he pulled a knife out on us.
Okay. Did you do anything to threaten him?
No,
And he just pulled this knife completely unprovoked.
well, him and Al was arguing earlier over that ball, that chocolate bomb.
Okay.
And he was talking all this foreign language and weird stuff and whatever. So I kept taking that thing away from him, putting it on the table, and he kept grabbing it.
Okay.
And he kept talking that funny language. So I told him, why don't you shut the F up? Tired of hearing that crap.
Okay.
And then Al says, because he's a F and D head. And with his phone, he went up, stood up like that. Al knocked the phone out of his hand. That's when he pulled out the knife. And when I seen the knife, that's when we started scuffling, and I was just trying to kick everything under the table.
Okay.
And it just escalated after that.
When you describe a scuffle, you're shoving him or you're trying to push him away.
No, he was trying to reach down, and I'm trying to, push him out of the way, and I was taking my foot and kicking the stuff under the table so he can't grab it.
Are you kicking him at all?
No,
Your testimony is you didn't hit or kick Mr. Henkel at all?
right.
You were only shoving him as your testimony today?
Yeah, trying to push the stuff under the table so he couldn't get to it.
And Mr. Shepherd, what was he doing? Was he able to contain Mr. Henkel?
Just telling him that he's an idiot and just pretty much yelling at him.
Okay, so the both of you are yelling at him and telling him to shut up, but not making any physical contact with him. That's your
Right.
testimony. At some point, Mr. Henkel attempts to call the police, correct?
I don't know.
Well, I guess my question, did he call the police in your presence or no?
No.
Okay. When the police arrived, they asked you whether you'd been drinking,
Yes.
and you told them you'd been drinking?
Yes.
You told them you had 6 beers and some vodka?
And didn't tell them how many I had or anything. They never asked me how many I had precise.
Okay.
I ran to the neighbor's house because he was chasing me out of the house with that baton. And Billy and Lisa, which is Alan Shepherd's neighbors, they're the ones that called the police and the ambulance.
Okay. Just a brief court indulgence.
Yes, sir.
one more question. You said your wife came?
Yes.
What time did she get there?
Had to been around 7:30 maybe approximately.
Okay, and what is her name?
Abby,
What is her last name?
Wojciechowski.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect, sir?
None from the people, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sir, thank you for your testimony this afternoon. You may step down.
Okay.
Your next witness?
Your Honor, the people would like to call Mr. Alan Shepard to the stand. Just one moment.
Absolutely. Stop at this podium for me first, please, Mr. Shepherd. Nope, the one right in front of you. Yep. State your first and last name and then spell them both for the record.
Alan Glenn Shepherd, my name. Live at 101-331.
Spell your name, first and last name for
The
me,
what?
please. Spell them, first and last name for me, please.
Spell it?
Spell your first and last name.
All right. Alan, A-L-E-N, Shepherd, S-H-E-P-A-R-D.
Raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Thank you. Now, please come up here and have a seat in the black chair that's closest to me. My secretary is recording your testimony. If she can't hear you, I'll ask you to raise your voice or pull the microphone closer, okay?
Mr. Shepard, just a few questions. First of all, do you reside at 10133 Romaine Avenue
Yes,
in
I do.
Romulus, Michigan?
Yes, I do, sir.
And is that in Wayne County, Michigan?
Yep.
Okay, just briefly, can you tell us in your own words what happened on December 21st of 2022?
Oh, we was all sitting there having a good time, laughing, partying. And, I'm not really sure what happened, but I know Jared whipped the knife off. We told him to put it away. I mean, this and that.
Can you first talk about what led to the moment where he pulled out the knife?
That what?
Can you describe, was there any kind of moment that led to him pulling out the knife? Anything happened before then?
No, just, like I said, we just all sat there having a good time and he whipped that knife off.
So he just whipped out the
Little bit
knife?
argument, and then he whipped that knife out. We told him to put the knife away, and I don't know, I got kicked underneath the table a few times when he whipped that baton out. I don't know nothing after that. Once he hit me in the head, I don't know nothing. I was knocked out.
Can you tell us what he hit you in the head with?
That baton thing, metal baton thing. Weapon.
The person that hit you in the head, is he anywhere in this courtroom today? Is a person who hit you in the head anywhere in the courtroom today?
Yeah.
Can you please point him out and tell us what he's wearing?
Sitting over
And what is he wearing? What is he,
there. Jar ankle.
what is he wearing?
What was he wearing?
What is he currently wearing?
Black coat.
Okay, that's good enough. Let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant, C.R. Hinkle.
JR, yes, sir.
JR, I'm sorry,
No worries.
J.R. Hinkle. Now, after you were hit in the head with the baton, do you remember anything
I don't
afterwards?
remember much after that. I know once I got up, sat at my table, that's when the cops came.
Did
No, sir,
you
Jimmy.
sustain any injuries from that?
Yeah, I had 5 stitches in the back of my head, 5 staples.
Can you recall how many times you were hit with the baton?
I believe I was only hit once,
Once, okay. And you said in the back of the head and you had to
Yeah.
receive stitches.
knocked me out,
Do you still have any injuries to this day?
just headaches once in a while.
Okay. Did you have to go to the hospital after the incident?
Yeah.
Okay, how long were you in the hospital for?
Overnight.
Overnight?
About 7:30 in the morning.
Okay. Did you also happen to see him attacking anyone else with the baton?
I know he had to go up, he went upstairs to get it, that's all I know, and came back down with it.
Okay.
Cause when I got out of the hospital, I had to go, I went up to shut the light up upstairs, that's all I know.
Is there anything else you remember from that incident? Then no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Shepherd. Mr. Henkel is your roommate, is that fair to say?
The what?
Mr. Henkel lives in the,
Yeah,
a
he's
home.
renting the room from me,
Okay, so,
he's a renter.
you live together in the same home, correct? He's a renter.
What's that?
Mr. Shepherd, are you having difficulty hearing?
Yeah.
Are those things
do have
charged
it.
over there? Are those? Are they charged and ready to go? There are some assistive listening devices over there. They're not over there. Mr. Sullivan, I need you to keep your voice up.
Understood, Judge,
Okay.
thank you. My apologies, Mr. Shepherd. My question was, you and Mr. Henkel live in the same home, right?
Yeah,
You describe him as a renter of yours.
yeah, he's renting.
How long has he been renting from you?
2 years, 2.5 years, a little over 2 years.
And in those 2 years, have there been any of these such conflicts? Is it fair to say that Mr. Wojciechowski's presence on this particular evening escalated the situation to this fight? Is that a fair characterization? So what did Mr. Wojciechowski do to escalate the situation?
What now?
What did Mr. Wojciechowski do that made Mr. Henkel angry or got him? Was there something that Mr. Wojciechowski said or did?
That, I don't know, I couldn't tell you.
Okay,
Sorry about that, sorry, but I don't know.
okay.
I
You-
don't know, I have no idea what pulled the trigger got him going,
okay.
I have no idea.
You said that everyone was partying on this day, right? Is that right? People
Yeah.
were partying,
Yeah.
including Mr. Wojciechowski was partying? And you were partying too?
Yeah, we all were.
How much, do you remember how much you had to drink on this
I
day?
had to drink probably 5, 6 beers,
Okay, and when did you start drinking?
then you had that chocolate malt. I mean,
Yeah.
drink.
Okay, so, and that has vodka in it, is that right?
Yeah.
So you had 5 or 6 beers and some vodka,
5, 6 beers and a couple shots of that.
okay?
All that.
And when did you start drinking? Do you remember what time you started drinking?
Oh, I don't know for sure, probably 7 o'clock, 7:30, I don't, I'm
Okay,
not sure. I know, the other guy, Chris, he had his bike in my garage, it's Harley, and we moved the bike. We thought, laugh and get when we moved the bike out of the way, so we could have him put the car in there. My garage.
at any point during the altercation, did you see Mr. Henkel take his phone out? Do you remember Mr. Henkel taking his phone out? Do you remember Mr. Henkel calling the police?
No, my neighbors called the police, next door neighbors.
Okay. Do you remember Mr. Wojciechowski asking Mr. Henkel to leave the house?
You have to actually say it,
Oh,
Mr.
no.
Shepherd. You have to respond out
I
loud.
was. Do I remember how he left the house?
Do you
That's
remember,
exactly-
do you remember anything that was said between Mr. Wojciechowski and Mr. Henkel? Do you remember anything that was said between the two?
Not that I know.
That's a no, you don't remember anything that was said between the two? Just a brief court indulgence, Judge.
Absolutely. For some reason, I thought they were right over there, stacked up somewhere. It was hearing aids. Okay. I don't, you showing me it's not gonna help. You showing me it's not gonna help. We have to find it there. We didn't have it on. And amplify. Yeah. All the time I thought that's what they were, because there's what, 3 or 4 classes in there. What does it say on the side? Don't you know? I thought they looked like old school. Yes, that's them. No. No, I thought they looked like that. They were hard like that, and they go down like. That's, put that on the top of Fred list.
No other questions, Judge.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Nothing further from the people, Your Honor.
Mr. Shepherd, thank you for your testimony. You may step down. Your next witness, sir.
The people actually have no further witnesses at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan,
No witnesses at this time, Judge. Mr. Henkel would revoke his right to remain silent. I think that he does have a claim of self-defense, which he would present at a trial.
thank you. Argument.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, both complaining witnesses that were called here today established one thing in common. They were both hit in the head, in the back of their heads with a metal steel baton. Now, this defendant has been charged with a great bodily harm, and this is probable cause to bind over due to the area of the body that both complaining witnesses were hit, and the object being a metal steel object in the back of the head that knocked both men out. Now, one witness was knocked out to the point where he couldn't remember anything after that. But the other witness testified here that he was struck 7 times. And altogether, he was hit on the side of the head, the back of the head, near the eye, and he also testified that he received 8 staples in the back of his head. His head was bloody, and both men actually had were found bleeding on the back of the head, and both men had to endure 1 night in the hospital. Now, that is enough to establish the crime of great bodily harm, because also both witnesses complaining witnesses could have foreseen a concussion or a more severe injury or a head trauma, or it could have ended a lot more worse. Thankfully, all they did was spend 1 night in the hospital, and they are here today, but they've still sustained some injuries, and both of them have testified to the magnitude of how they were struck and how many times they were struck. And therefore, the people are satisfied with both testimonies that probable cause has been met, and we ask that this case be bound over to circuit court for arraignment on information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sullivan.
There's no objection to the bind over. Certainly probable cause has been met as to the charges charges. I think though that Mr. Henkel does have, a case where he'd be presenting the defense of self-defense. And I also think that, Mr. Henkel being in custody, hinders his ability, my ability to represent him. I think that this is a case where we're gonna be, finding other witnesses, the neighbors, for example. And if Mr. Henkel were able to post his bond, I think that, he'd stand a much better chance at presenting his case, a self-defense case. So.
Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry, let me stop you for one moment. You started by saying that there is no objection to the bind over. You're arguing for a change in, it sounds like you're beginning to argue for a change in the bond condition before the case is actually bound over.
Understood.
I'm asking you, I'm not telling you. Are you, I'm asking, this is why I'm asking.
Yeah.
This court is missing the preliminary examination sheet that indicates bind over or not. And if you have that in your file, sir?
No, I have not.
Okay,
This file is-
so. I'm trying to do two things at the same time. So, Mr. Sullivan, you were starting to make an argument about Mr. Hinkle's ability to participate in preparing for the next step in these proceedings, I do believe.
That's right, Judge. I'm asking, so again, no objection to the bind over. And I would like to put on.
Absolutely. I know we started this conversation previously. Mr. Hinkle's bond currently, my notes indicate 40,000 cash surety. 10% was set during a weekend arraignment on December 23rd. Your argument, sir.
Yes, Judge. My argument is that a bond is, an order of release. It's a conditional order of release, but it's an order of release. And that a person in Mr. Henkel's situation, charged with the same offense, the same facts, who had more money would be able to be released to the community, continue working, spend time with their family, and participate more effectively in their own defense. Here, Mr. Henkel is unable to post that bond and remains in custody now for 3 weeks, despite the fact that the bond itself is an order for release. It's a conditional order of release, but it is an order of release. There's not been a finding that Mr. Henkel is a flight risk or that he's such a danger to the community that he needs to be held without a bond. Instead, it's the reverse. It's that he is provided a bond, that he's releasable, but he just doesn't have the funds available. And Judge, my argument is that that violates his constitutional rights, both under the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause, 14th Amendment. And so, Judge, I'm asking that you amend the bond to a personal recognizance bond, so that Mr. Hinkle and that we can work together more effectively in presenting his defense at trial. I don't have objection to the bind over, Judge. That probable cause is satisfied. There's an issue of fact for the finder of fact, but I think that the fact is everyone was drinking on this particular evening. I think that Mr. Wojciechowski's testimony, it is inherent. There are some internal inconsistencies in his testimony, and I do think that obviously Mr. Henkel is presumed innocent at this point. So we're asking that he be given a bond, and that my argument is that further detention would be unduly punitive. So I'm asking for a recognizance bond, Judge.
Thank you.
Your Honor, while not much is known about the defendant's history of being a flight risk, one thing is certain, that the crime that he's been charged with and the testimony of both gentlemen demonstrates that his crimes in nature were shockingly violent. The fact that he felt a need to take out a metal baton and hit him in the heads, the fact that he even initiated this by taking out a knife in the first place and putting both men in danger, it kind of demonstrates that the defendant is a danger to the community. And the people would object to any changes to the bond, we find it's best to keep the bond as is.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
Nothing additional, Judge.
Mr. Sullivan, what you've omitted from your argument to alter the bond that was set on the weekend was whether or not your client's employed, how does he support himself? Does he have somewhere to go? There is a criminal history in the file. The most recent thing was a domestic violence case from 2010, 12 years ago now. But the court has some concerns where even though alcohol is involved and your allegation is that the self-defense will be raised or presented in circuit court, the court can't dismiss or ignore the fact that Mr. Hinkle did pull out 2 weapons on that night and injured 2 men sufficiently that both of them had to be transported to the hospital for medical treatment. So there's something between the 40,000 and the personal. I don't know what that looks like for you or what conversation, what additional argument or statements you want to make, but that's a case that involves that type of violence visited upon people you were partying with. The court does have some concern about public safety, community safety.
Understood, Judge. I know that I have verified that Mr. Hinkle has a brother that he'd be able to stay with. And so I think that the safety of the community, as Your Honor has cited, Mr. Hinkle doesn't have a history since 2010. And so I think that a condition of bond that Mr. Hinkle had absolutely no contact with witnesses in this case, that this, this is something personal between them. Perhaps a strand monitor so that he's not using alcohol in the interim. But I think that those conditions would satisfy community safety, whereas further detention is unduly punitive and prevents Mr. Hinkle from spending time with his family. He does also work. He's a truck driver. So again, I understand the facts as they're presented, but a person charged with the same offense under the same facts who has $4,000 is not detained, whereas Mr. Hinkle is detained, and I think that's unconstitutional. So I'm asking for a bond that Mr. Hinkle can afford.
Which is?
Mr. Hinkle has indicated that he has $500 and he'd be able to post a $500 bond, but not.
Anything else from the prosecution?
Your Honor, at this time, prosecution, we have nothing else. We still feel it's best to keep the bond as is, but if ultimately that will be in your discretion, and if you choose to reduce the bond, then I think the main thing that should be in place is perhaps a no contact between defendant and the 2 gentlemen that have testified here, as well as maybe a GPS tether would be also appropriate.
Any objection to GPS tether?
The only thing that I anticipate with the GPS tether, and this may not be a problem, but just want to raise it for the court, that Mr. Hinkle does drive trucks, and so he'd be, moving around quite a bit. I don't think he's going to be out of the state, though.
No.
So,
I'd like to get my cars and my clothes.
you'd have to, right? So, sorry to be long-winded about it, but I don't think there's any objection to that, Judge.
Thank you. The court was delaying making a decision about the bond modification because we're still missing the form that's necessary to bind over, and I didn't want to bind over Mr. Hinkle before we address the bond in its entirety. I still don't have the form. The the court will modify the bond to 5,000, 10%. GPS tether for location purposes only, not to return to the location of this offense, 10133 Romaine Avenue. I understand that that is where Mr. Hinkle resided prior to the incident from December. But Mr. Sullivan, you've indicated that he has somewhere else to go. Mr. Hinkle, is to have no contact with the complainants in this case, that being Mr. Christopher Wojciechowski and Mr. Alan Shepard. That decision having been made, the court having had the opportunity to hear the testimony of both of the complainants in this case, and taking Mr. Sullivan at his word that there is no objection to the bind over, the court will bind Mr. Hinkle over as charged. The next date in these proceedings will be their arraignment. Was there something you wanted to say, sir?
No, I think we're okay.
The next day in these proceedings will be an arraignment on the information on Wednesday, January 18, 2023 at 9 a.m. at the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. Anything else on behalf of the people?
Nothing further from the people, Your Honor.
Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
No, Judge, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes this matter. This court stands adjourned. Thank you.